So for this next bit, what we're going to be doing is working on this persistent connection server. Initially, I was thinking that we might do this with SignalR because it's got all those different connection protocols. However, the more I think about it, the more universal I can make this if I just make it through TCP or through WebSocket. So that's what we're going to work on right now. So I think we're going to make a TCP server, and then I think we're going to make a WebSocket server. And we're going to use some NuGet packages, which I've published and put out there. And then once this is completed, we can create our basic plugin. But we're not going to be able to have the auth set in until we register our applications. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat. We got an active and supportive community, or discord.pixelorstudios.com. I know it has. How have you been? I've been working on my JavaScript classes. The book we're using is terrible. It's going great. I work a lot, just get a lot done. This is an app which is to manage each of my different N-tier apps and layers, because it's getting kind of hard to find out when we have a connection problem. So, okay, so SignalR is set up here. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this SignalR service that I added. I actually don't need this worker because I need a different one. So we're going to add in here a new worker, and a worker is a background service. And I'm going to add that into here. And we're going to call this the Monitaur.services.tcp. Okay, we're also going to want another one, which is another worker service called the Monitor.services.tcp.ssl. And then our last one here is we want to have a web app, this one, and we want to put this inside of clients web apps, and this is going to be called the Monitor.webapps.tcp.WebSocket. And we can make this thing just an empty project. Okay. Let's go ahead and rebuild it. Now, if I look at my NuGet packages that I have available here, my documentation is sparse at the moment, but it should be okay. Is what's obsolete? If I look at my NuGet packages, the first one we want to look for is a TCP.NET. This is mine here. And this is for server and for client. So I could just do TcpNET.server. Well, let's do this whole thing because I want everything. I want the SSL and everything. Okay, we're also going to add this to here for TCP.NET. And now when I look at this, we're going to call this a TCP worker. And it's got a logger here, and it's set up to be asynchronous. So we're going to look at my TCP.NET. Oh, come on. Oh, that's super annoying. Let me just do this. There. And now what I can do is we can put this as just a second. We want to make a server, and this one is just our regular one. So we want to do a Auth server, TcpNET Server Auth. And we're going to put this in as a TCP server is what we're going to call this. Okay. So let's go ahead and add this in. I'm going to start with just this one without the auth. And so when we start this, we're going to say my server equals new TcpNET server, with just a new params of my TCP server, and then also a new TCP connection manager. And everything is set up like this so I can override it. So my end of line characters is going to be a /r/n. My interval reconnect for the server, which is interesting, will be 15 seconds. The ping interval in seconds will be 120. The port will be 6895. And the URI, I feel like is deprecated, but we can just use localhost at the moment. And then we want to do the events on connection event. Error event. And message event. Okay, we also need to add that now into the dispose. Which is going to be if my server does not equal to null, then we want to do this. And do we have something in here which is called like start server? No, it automatically starts. Anyone here comfortable with JavaScript? I had a problem where no anchor elements with my URLs and my HTML when my JavaScript file is linked. No anchor elements work with my URLs and HTML. I do a lot of stuff in JS, but I use libraries for capturing things a lot of times. So you're using like native HTML5. Like, how about when I link JavaScript file on my HTML, the links work. The JavaScript is affecting them and I don't know why. I hate following the book's JavaScript tutorial. Yeah, we'd have to take a look at the code and we could find out what's happening. And this one we can just do a return task.completed task. And we can do a logger.log information of my args.message. And this will be a connection event type .toString. Okay. So that should be a basic TCP server up and running. And now I need to have a test client. Let me make a new project here called second. You want to make a new folder called tests. And we'll make a new console.NET Core project called the Monitor.test.TCP Client. Why did that put it in VB? Yeah, that's fine. What's JavaScript? Okay, so now what I want to do is go into my public project here. Okay, how to change the names. Get the element by your note name. Okay. There's not too much, okay? Right label if you're either target or source text intern. Okay, add event listener. Man, I use so many different frameworks now. All right. Recorder controls. Add event listener for the click. Note name. Okay, here's the HTML. So let's throw this in a code pen. So here's our HTML. We're going to add this in. Okay. So we've got exercise number 7. That's what the title is. Last king, we have an audio note. Enter your note name. And then a record button. Okay. And then your return to home, which doesn't matter. Okay. So in your JS, you've got this. So let's just try something here. What was that upset with me about? So let me just try this a little bit just to make sure that things are working. Okay, that did work. So the JS is working. So now, let me turn this one off for a minute. Maybe it's the other one that we want. Yeah, we'll do this, and this, and this. That should help a little bit. My anchor tab. Which one's your anchor tab that you're referring to? Okay, so note name, get your element by ID, note name, write labels, good above, good. Is it this? It won't get your attribute that you've added? So this down here? You mean your return to home isn't working? And it's this JavaScript file. But if you were to comment this out, is what you're saying, then it works fine. So that means that something in this JavaScript is affecting that. And we would have to dig into that to find out what's going on. That's one of the fun things that I found with JavaScript, is that some of the libraries can just impact what's happening. But yeah, that's what I think is happening as well. So back over here, we're going to create our first instance of the client. So I'll make a new project, which will be a class library for .NET Core. And I'll put that in public. And I'm going to call this the Monitaur.tcp. Let me change that to be called TCP Client. Just a second. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds crazy to me, but it just sounds like it's not good. So in the TCP client, we're going to add NuGet packages here. And I want to add TCP.NET Client to this. And this one we can call my Monitaur client. And we'll just call this monitor client TCP or something like that temporarily. And so in this, now I want to have the TCP.NET.client, this one. So this is a protected read-only one of these called client. And in my constructor, I'm going to say my client is equal to a new TCP.NET client. When I look at my client, I can do a connection event. This probably looks very familiar to our implementation we did just a minute ago. And then Modern.js by itself with ES6 is what I like. Yeah, the older stuff is not as much fun. I like Angular. I like working in TypeScript more when I can. And then we also want to have the message event. And then also we want to have the error event. Okay. And the only thing we want to do here is return a task.completed task. And then we want this to be disposable, so we can add in the public virtual void dispose. And then we can get rid of this stuff here. Okay. Looks good. And so now on my client, what I want to do is make a test app. And we'll make this a console application. Make a new folder in here called tests. And we're going to call this the Monitaur tests TCP client. And the only thing I want to do is we want to include in here a new function called public virtual void send message, which is just going to do the client.send to server, which is a packet or a string. We'll do it as a string, like that. So we can now extract that as an interface and add disposable onto the interface. And then up here now we can have my Monitaur client TCP, which is a private static client. And then we want to do client equals new Monitaur client TCP. And then we just want to do a while true. And then I want to do a var line equals console.readline. And then I want to do a client.send message the line, just to try it out. Yeah, that's okay. And now, so we can go ahead and remove this whole thing. And then we can open this back up. And now what I want to do is I want to run this TCP server. And all we want to do here is return a task.completed task. And we can give that a run. So you can see that it wants to connect with the TCP server. We'll allow it. Here it is, TCP worker, server start. The port is 6895. So back over here, when I'm making my client, I need to connect to it, which is at localhost, and then that, and then my end of line characters. And so for this one, we could say the URI is equal to localhost, the port is equal to 6895, and the end of line characters are equals to that. So we don't really even need them. Okay, this is already running over here. So we can go ahead and run the client. I found where the error is, but I don't know how to go about fixing it. Where's the error? This section. Which one of these is causing it? If I look at this, we can do a test, and you can see that we have a connection here. Okay? The next one that we wanted to have was the TCP SSL connection. So we're going to do the same thing here. Like that. Which means that we're also going to need to add in here a NuGet package for SSL. And now these events are SSL. Like that. And our port on this one's going to be 6890. And now what we can do is extract an interface from this. And we can go ahead and get rid of this and add the iDisposable. I'm going to go ahead and change this iMonitor TCP. Monitor TCP SSL. Monitor TCP. And monitor client TCP. Monitor SSL. Monitor TCP SSL. Like that. Okay. So now that we have that set up, we also want to have a WebSocket set up. So we will add a new project to this, which will be another class library. And I'm going to put this here in the root. I'm going to call this the Monitor.WebSocket Client. And to this, we're going to add a NuGet package called TcpNET. I'm sorry, it's called WebsocketsSimple. And the one we want is client. Remember, I wrote all of these. So this is going to be called a Monitaur WebSocket. And in this, we want to have a WebSocket I want to have a protected read-only WebsocketsSimple.client.client. So now up here, we're going to have my client is a new one of these. We're going to call this the client.WebSocket client. Because it's the same namespace as this one. And when we do this, we're going to have the client.connection event on connection event. And then the client.error event on error event, and then the client.message event on message event. Like that. And then we also want to have the public virtual void send message asynchronous, which will have my message, which is a client dot send asynchronous, which is a message, because we can just send just that, and we need to make this a public virtual asynchronous task. We also need to have the public virtual void dispose, where we get rid of this. Finally, we need to say client.connect asynchronous here. And you can do that as a task.run asynchronous client.connect asynchronous, and we're going to pass in here our couple of parameters here. You want to have the URL, which in our case is going to be URI equals localhost. So used to the other port, which is going to be, what did we say it was? 6890. Oh no, so it needs to be 6885. And the parameters is anything that we want to append to the end of the connection. So that would be our token, which we don't currently have. And the last one is WSS, which is going to default to true. And we want to make this iDisposable. And then we're going to extract the interface here, like that. WebSocket version of it. That would be much harder to bind. We'll leave it like this for now. Okay. And then what we can do is we can make a new project again, which we're going to call a console application. And then up here we can make a new project called the Monitaur.tests.WebSocket Client. And very, very similar to what I have here. I want this to be for the WebSocket. And we want this to be a static asynchronous task where we await this. Okay? So now we're going to go implement our middleware. So on this WebSocket, I'm going to add a NuGet package. And I want to look for WebsocketsSimple.middleware. We're going to add this one. And now in here, I want to say, oh, what was it? I'm trying to remember because I don't have it documented what that was called. I know it needs WebSockets in there. It's called, let me look. Oh, come on, where is it? So I know down here we want to say we can get rid of this app use endpoints, I think, because I think we want to use app.use WebSockets. And then we also want to include a app.map WebSocket manager. Which needs to have this new set of parameters. And then a server, which is WebSocket Server, which is another parameters. And then a new WebSocket Connection Manager. And then finally, this user service, which I need to implement. So in my modules, I'm going to add a new class library in C#. And I want to call this the Monitaur.bll. And in this one, I'm going to have something here called a user service. And this needs to have a NuGet package here to phs.core. What's the longest time I've spent? I don't know, 6 hours. I usually take a break after about 4. Okay, install that. Make it an iUser service here. Implement my function. We're going to just for now return a task from result of a GUID.new GUID. And then this is a new user service. Like that. So I'm going to call this a user service. And in here, we can say connected to WebSocket. And for the ping interval, we can say 120 seconds. And we're going to say not connected to WebSocket. And my authorized string is the same. That's interesting. We're going to say invalid token and not authorized. You are authorized. Now, if I look at this one really quick, is it supposed to be endpoints.use WebSockets? No. And that should be it. So now when I connect this, you can see if I start the web app, okay, it's because user service is different. So if I jump into here and I get rid of this, and I add here a NuGet package called WebsocketsSimple Middleware. That should be a different version, and now it should hopefully work. Let's see. Same issue. That's so interesting. So if I look at this one, oh God, my WebSocket server. God. I don't understand what this is upset about. This should be fine. WebSocket Manager params. I WebSocket Server the WebSocket Connection Manager. What? Okay. And then WebSocket Connection Manager. And then iUser service. Okay, let's try that again. No. So, can you do this as a user service WebSocket? Try this. Let's try that. I think it just started there, so that's something to fix. So if I look at this one, it's running at 59460. So over on this client, five nine 460. Five 9460. We'll test it. Okay, and over here, I think the WebSocket server is where we attach our messages to it. Yeah. So let's stop this for a second. we're going to grab this server. So this will be a private WebSocket server. And then you can do a onMessage event. Okay, let's give that a try. We'll run that WebSocket server. Needs to be a return task not completed. Okay, we'll jump back over here into the app. We'll try connecting it again. We'll give it a test. So I don't think it passed authorization right now. So if we were to try this again, sorry. So I got a little bit of stuff to fix on WebSockets here. Five, 9, 4. Oh, it's because it's not. It's because it's not WSS. There we go. Now it's working. And my message event here is what? Not authorized. So it's working now, but we have to fix the authorization issues on it. So that's it for me for now. Thanks again for staying with me today. If you haven't, check us out at our YouTube, youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. Also, I put all these videos up at youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. I may be back again today. I may not. I'm just going to put up there 5 p.m. today, but we don't know if that's accurate or not. If you haven't, make sure you check us out discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com, youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com, and have a great rest of your morning, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.